Okay, so I've invited David here. I did David's NLP practitioner, master practitioner and trainer's training way back in the early 2000s. David's been doing it since much earlier than that, in the 90s. Of all the people, and it's interesting because I actually came across David when he ran his free event. So it's like he was actually doing free events and stuff way before even I was. A lot of what you've learned to do here at Speakers Academy and Speakers University was actually learned indirectly through David. Meaning the whole idea of doing speaking pods, that comes directly from David. He has an event himself called Speaking Magically, which, you speak in pods. The idea of trainers training, again, you speak in pods, obviously teaching NLP content. But a lot of the stuff that I learned today, storytelling, metaphors, in fact, he may say some phrases, go, Andy says that. Just so you know, if he says that, he ain't copying me. It's because I copied him. Does that make sense? He went first. I don't even remember half the stuff I say that I learned from David. Sometimes we learn so many things from different people, they become our own. It's only when you trace back the original source, that's where I learned it from. So I probably discovered today that there's much more I owe David to than I actually would care to admit to, probably. So David's been around in the area of NLP, hypnosis. He is... actually, well, Dave, you can tell yourself. What is your hypnosis thingy-majiggy, like you're the director of, or
master trainer
of
hypnosis?
And you're on the board of all these kind of things as well, right?
Yeah.
So David learned years and years ago and spent a lot of money himself learning in the States himself from one of the early pioneers in NLP, one of the early people who's no longer around, has since recently passed. But that person passed on the wisdom to David, and he gets to pass it. So Tad, his original trainer, is still speaking, is still alive today because he's essentially speaking through David, and therefore I'm also on my way speaking to you. And that brings up something, doesn't it? That if you want to live forever, right, then make sure you do something that echoes out many centuries into the future. You have the opportunity to do so. So mindset, massive, huge. But the problem with most of us is we don't have a real set of tools for it. We understand mindset, we know what it is, but we don't really have, all of us, a series of mechanics that we can fall upon or call upon at a particular time. For me, the greatest bag of tools I ever got to use was NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Program. I learned it directly from David, and I invited him for the next 90 minutes or so to present to you and teach you a lot of amazing stuff. I hope you'll find it just as powerful as I did, and as hopefully as you did this morning as well. So with that said, I think a big warm welcome to my dear friend and fellow speaker. Please go up for David Shephard, please. I just wondered whether that was your Zimmer frame or whether it was...
No, not that old, mate. Not yet. Good evening. How are you all doing? Doing good? Excuse my shoes. I'd forgotten to pack any proper shoes because I've just literally flown in today from Tenerife for a few hours because we're running a retreat in Tenerife. September 1995. And I find myself in a rather unusual state because I'm excited and I'm scared. How many people here have ever been excited and scared at the same time? Yeah. And the reason why I'm excited and scared is because the person that Andy's just mentioned, my friend and mentor, Tad James, had just asked me to train on his trainer's training. I was excited because it was such a massive opportunity. I was scared because I didn't want to let him down. And he gave me no warning, no preparation time, no nothing. I was going to be on stage to an audience a little bit bigger than this in around less than 24 hours. And I hadn't got anything prepared. So I went back to my room, sat there with a blank piece of paper for an hour, for 2 hours, for 3 hours, for 4 hours. I guess I had what you might call speaker's block. How many people here have had speaker's block? Yeah. So I thought eventually, I've got to go to bed. I've got to get some sleep. So I had a chat with my unconscious mind. And, I trust my unconscious mind. I said, dear unconscious mind, because my unconscious mind likes to be called dear. Dear unconscious mind, please, whilst asleep, come up with my presentation for tomorrow morning. After a night of dreamless sleep, I woke up. Still no presentation. So I thought maybe it'll come to me whilst I'm having a shower. So I had a shower. Still nothing. I thought maybe it'll come to me whilst I have a shave, because a lot of my biggest insights come to me whilst I'm having a shave. Well, I finished my left leg. Still nothing. Yeah. So I thought maybe it'll come to me whilst I have breakfast. So I went for breakfast. Nothing. And the clock is ticking, right? Now it's less than an hour before I'm on stage. And I thought maybe I just need to distract myself. Maybe I just need to go sit by the pool, read a book. Maybe something will come to me from that. So I did that, and I'd taken a whole load of books with me, because I take books everywhere I go. But I'd only taken one novel, and it's the only novel that Deepak Chopra has ever written, which was The Return to Merlin. And I read just the first chapter of that, and my entire presentation just went like boom into my head in one go. Now, I know that Andy's been talking to you about stories today, hasn't he? Yeah. And I remember on my trainer's training, which was in 1935, just kidding, 1993, and my mentor, and who Andy's already mentioned, Tad James, was on the stage. It was the first day, and he said, right, overnight, come up with 5 stories, 5 metaphors that you can use in your training, in your presentation, first thing tomorrow morning. To deliver first thing tomorrow morning. And I remember, I don't know if you've had the same experience with when Andy was talking to you about stories, but I remember like sinking down in the chair, because I had this limiting belief. Well, actually, it wasn't a limiting belief, because it was actually true. I thought I was a crap storyteller. And I got lots of evidence and lots of proof that that was the case. Several years earlier, in around about 1990, I was doing a training as an achievement coach. Now, coaching's really popular these days, right? But in 1990, a coach was somebody that you had to improve your tennis, or you used to go on holiday to Skegness, where I lived. Yeah, that was what a coach was, right? So it's very forward-looking. So I'm on this achievement coaching training, and the trainer was called Roy. And he'd just discovered metaphors. And he believed that metaphors were the best thing since sliced bread. Which is a metaphor in itself, if you think about it, right? So imagine going through an entire week of metaphors and stories with the belief that you're a crap storyteller. It was not the best week for me. So it's the final day. And the room wasn't laid out like this. The room was laid out in kind of like standard business format. So it was laid out with tables in a U shape like this. The tables apparently are so that people can take notes, but that's not really what they're for. What they're really for is so that people don't fall on the floor when they fall asleep after lunch. That's what they're really for, right? So it's a U shape like this. there's 13 of us on the training. My mate, best mate, Andy Cooper, is sat here, and I'm sat here, right? Waiting for Roy to arrive. Now, Roy just walks into the room and goes, okay, what's a metaphor that you can use to empower your clients to improve their results in coaching? Andy, go. I'm thinking, poor Andy, he's had no warning, whatever. I'm thinking, like, have you ever really been pleased that you hadn't gone first? Yeah. But then Andy comes out with this absolutely brilliant metaphor. I mean, it was stonking. I'm going like, fuck, where did that come from, Then he goes to Roy goes to the next person. What's your metaphor? He comes up with one that's even better than Andy's. Then the next person, what's your metaphor? He comes up with one that's even better than the other person. And I'm thinking, I'm going last. I'm going to be a huge disappointment to the crowd at large. I'm thinking, I really wish I'd gone first. Have you ever had that? So I don't know if you've been in a room when people are telling you stories and all that kind of stuff, but your mind tends to kind of like wander. And my mind wandered to a time in the distant past when I was a kid. Now, one of the things I was really curious about, really passionate about when I was a kid, and I still am now, to be honest with you, was radios. I mean, speaking to you as a child, how did they get the people inside? But, as a kid, you don't just wonder about that. You've got to find out, right? So I go to my dad's toolbox, get a radio and a screwdriver, dangerous combination, and I take the screws out the back of the radio, take the back off the radio, and much to my surprise, there's no people in there. Now, as a kid, you see, you're expecting people. Because you go like, oh, there's people inside. Hello. Showing my age now. It's the Beatles. Yeah. But there's no people. So now I'm even more curious about how radios work. So I take the screwdriver. Fortunately, it's a battery radio, which is why I'm still here today. And I make some changes inside the radio. And as a kid, you learn really quickly. And I learned in no time at all how to make a radio not work. So I take the back of another radio and make some changes inside or whatever. Now my parents are getting worried because we're running out of radios. And my dad sees me heading towards the TV set with a screwdriver in my hand. Now, this curiosity, this passion actually led me to go to university and get a degree in electronics. So I do speak with quite authority as far as this is concerned. There is only one difference between a radio and a TV set. With a TV set, they put a window in the front so you can see the people inside. So my mum and dad go out to the neighbours and they said, look, David's into taking radios apart. Do you have any broken radios? And so they donated broken radios. And I would take the back off, and there was a couple of times I made some changes inside and suddenly this broken radio started to work again. And I took it back to the neighbours and said, here's your radio back. And said, we don't want it, David, it doesn't work. I said, it does now, and I switched it on. And they gave me 50p, which doubled my salary and put me into the next tax bracket. That's a 7-year-old. Fortunately, Keir Starmer wasn't around in those days. But I still remember them saying to my dad, how come David can fix radios when he's only 5, 6 or 7 years old? And I still remember what he said to this day. But I'm still curious, I'm still passionate about radios even today. I'm actually a radio amateur now, so it was one of my dad's dreams, which he never achieved, so I kind of like achieved it for him. But even then, if you've got a radio at home and you turn the volume control down from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, it all goes quiet inside. Now, there was one particular day I was listening to a radio that I'd fixed. I was tuning in to different things on the dial, stationing my awareness. And there was a particular station that caught my ear, because it was a radio station that was broadcasting a radio play. A bit like Radio 4, if you've listened to Radio 4, you know. And, you know, when you listen to a radio play, it's different than watching TV, it's different than going to the movies, because there are no pictures. So you have no choice. You have to go inside and make up your own pictures, because there aren't any. You've got to go inside and make up your own pictures. And the reason why this radio play caught my ear was because it was a radio play about Merlin, Arthur, and the Knights of the Round Table. And when I was a kid, this is way before Harry Potter, by the way, when I was a kid, I was fascinated by magicians and wizards. So I was like transfixed with this radio play. And before long, I kind of like disappeared into the radio. And I went off to the times, ancient times of Merlin and Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Now, I don't know if you know the story, but so the story goes, Arthur was the true king of England. But nobody knew. There was only one person that knew, if you see my point. Only one person. And that was Merlin. And Arthur had been working with Merlin on magic for a long time. And eventually it came to the day where Merlin went to Arthur and said, "You have been studying magic for a long time. It's now time for you to go out and work your magic." Now, the thing was that what Merlin had done, he was given a sword, very magical sword, by the Lady of the Lake. And the sword was called Excalibur. And what Merlin had done is he'd stuck the sword into a stone that was like right here in front of this gentleman here. And there was Excalibur. And then what Merlin had done is cast a spell on Excalibur, so that only the true rightful king of England would be able to remove the sword from the stone. And many men had attempted or tried to take the sword from the stone and failed, because they weren't the true rightful king of England. So Merlin said to Arthur, "It's time for you to work your magic. Time for you to remove the sword from the stone." And so they traveled for days and a days until they came to the place where Excalibur was in the stone. And Merlin said, "Arthur, take the sword from the stone. Claim your kingdom." When Merlin said that, Arthur stood there looking at Excalibur glinting in the sunlight. And he hesitated. Have you ever hesitated? I mean, not now, but you've hesitated in the past, right? And Merlin sat there on his medieval bar stool, thinking, poor Arthur, what can I do to empower him to take the sword from the stone? Now, Merlin had studied magic for a long time. You know, he'd studied with people like Grandler and Binder, Jad Thames, all these kind of people. So he knew a lot about magic, and he knew the power of words. Because one of the things that's been forgotten a lot by a lot of many people, I know you realize this, but a lot of people don't realize that words are magic. And that words can create magic in people's lives. So Merlin, looking at Arthur over here, went, Arthur, how would you like to feel instead? And no sooner had Merlin said those words, you could see the change in Arthur's physiology. Because he stood there and he said, I will have Excalibur in my hands. I'll feel the power of Excalibur coursing down my arms, filling up my body. And he said, at that point in time, I know I can do absolutely everything. I know I can do absolutely anything. Have you ever felt like that? Just for a moment, where you went like, I can do everything. I can do everything. So Merlin sat there and thought, right, how do I get Arthur from here to here? And he was wondering about that. And it was around about a couple of minutes past 7 on his medieval sundial. And this huge bird flew overhead, because they had bigger birds in those days. And, you know, it was several hours after he'd had lunch and he was feeling a little bit heavy and decided that he needed to let some stuff go, if you know what I mean. And as it flew over Merlin, that's exactly what it did. And it fell squarely on Merlin's head. Shit, he thought. But, you know, Merlin knew about these laws of the universe, like cause and effect. Perception is projection. So he asked himself questions. So how did I create this situation? If perception is projection, who have I shat on recently? And he always liked to get one learning a day. By the way, there's something very, very important here. In your learnings is, it's important to realize that even great wizards and great magicians get shat on every now and again. But he asked himself the question, how did I create this? What do I need to do differently to be able to create things differently in the future? And lots of answers came up from his unconscious mind. And he always liked to pick one learning a day. Because he thought, if you pick one learning a day, how many learnings would you have in a lifetime? And he always liked to pick his favorite learning of the day, which he did. And that day he picked this particular learning. And you might want to write this down because it's really important. Never, 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 never look up with your mouth open. Particularly in Trafalgar Square. But now he goes and looks at our poor Arthur, who's still there hesitating. And he said to Arthur, Arthur, last time you hesitated, what was it that got you out the hesitation? Because everybody's hesitated, but you can't hesitate forever. He said, if you'd hesitated forever, you'd never have come to find me in the first place. What was it that got you out of the hesitation? And again, the words worked their magic. And you could see the transformation in Arthur's physiology. Because he said, I just got so frustrated with myself. Have you ever been frustrated? Have you? I mean, not now, but have you ever been frustrated? He said, I got so fucking frustrated, I thought I was going to kill somebody. So frustrated. And Merlin said, well, you can't stay like that forever, because you tire yourself out. What was it that got you out of the frustration? And again, the words worked their magic. And Arthur said, well, something just clicked inside. I had a light bulb moment, an aha moment. Something clicked inside. Have you ever had one of those? Like suddenly you go like, now I've got it. Now I know what to do. If you were Archimedes, you go like, eureka. And then call the plumber. Clear all the mess. One of those moments where you just click. Now I've got it. Now, Merlin knew a lot of people who knew exactly what to do, but never did it. You might know some people like that, who know exactly what to do, but never get round to doing it. And Merlin didn't want that for Arthur. So he said to Arthur, so what happens between knowing what to do and totally going for it? And again, the words worked their magic. And Arthur said, well, you know, I get right on the verge, right on the edge. He said, it's a bit like when you know that you're going to sneeze, but you haven't sneezed yet. Have you ever done that? Where it's like, apparently you use exactly the same muscles when you sneeze as when you come to me in a minute. Have you ever been, that's the one. Have you ever been right on the verge, right on the edge? Have you? I mean, even if you're by yourself at the time, right on the verge and right on the edge, and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. I'm with you. And it builds up and it builds up and it builds up, and you're thinking, I'm not sure how much of this I can take, but I'm willing to experiment. And it builds up. It builds up and it builds up and it builds up, and you go, that was a tantric moment there. So Arthur thought, right, time to work some magic. Now, rumour has it that great magicians, there's power in their gestures. But if you think about it, 55% of the meaning of communication is in our physiology, then it would kind of like make sense that there was power in our gestures. I know you've trained with Andy, so you know there's power in your gestures, right? Yep. You do, don't you? Definitely. Right. But if you've forgotten it, fuck it, who cares? So Merlin looked at Arthur and fired a magical gesture in his direction. And it went something like this. And a strange chain of events began to take place in Arthur's neurology. Because he's fucking frustrated. Now I've got it. Light bulb. Aha moment. Something clicked inside. And then you could see him, he was there like a coiled spring. And it was getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. And you're thinking, is he? Is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And then suddenly, with one swish, Excalibur was out of the stone. And Arthur was there holding Excalibur in his hands. And if you were there that day, you would say, now there is someone that can do everything. There is someone that can do anything. And Merlin sat there and thought, not a bad day's work. Enable the new King of England to claim his throne. Obviously, if he was a queen, he'd be a queendom. So let's talk about eliciting states in an audience. Oh, well, let me just put that back for a second. So, I'm talking about influence, but I'm talking about influencing one on many. How many people here have been in a situation where you believed you deserved something? Wait until I finish this before I answer the question. You believed you deserved something. You believed you deserved the job. You believed you deserved the pay rise. You believed you deserved the sale. You believed you deserved the boy or the girl. And then you didn't get what you deserved. Yeah. So the thing is, I realized, let me move this out of the way, was in life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you influence. Except we're not taught how to influence at school. We're taught useful things like the Battle of Hastings is 1066. Now, you've got to be careful with information like that because you could have somebody's eye out with that. See how good your history is, right? So what I want to talk to you about today is about influence, and particularly how you can influence as a speaker, one on many. And about eliciting states. Why would we want to elicit states? Firstly, when you elicit states, your audience remembers you. I think we've all probably seen speakers who elicited just one state. Now, here's the thing about...
Could you explain elicit? I don't know what it means.
Yes, elicit, thank you, sir. Elicit a state means putting somebody into a different emotional state than they are now. Yeah?
Not like a winning state or something?
Any state, any different state. Yeah. So, did I elicit some states earlier? Hesitation, frustration. Ah, on the verge. Some people are still there. Because they like it. And then, totally empowered state, if you like. So that's what elicit means. Now, here's the thing, and state is a posh word in NLP for the way the person is feeling, their emotion. Yeah? Now, why does that have you become more memorable? Emotion creates what's called memory structures. How many people here have a favorite movie? Now, I'm not Derren Brown. I don't know what that movie is, but my guess is that's your favorite movie because it changed the way that you felt in some way. Am I right? Yeah. How many people here have a favorite song or a favorite piece of music? Yeah. Even though I don't know what that piece of music is, even though I don't know what that song is, my guess is it's your favorite piece of music because it changed the way you felt in some way. Am I right? Yeah. So that's why eliciting states. How many people here, just out of interest, are going to be in a position or situation or want to be in a situation where you're in a multi-speaker event? Great. So this is how you go to a multi-speaker event and the people leave remembering you rather than the others. Yeah. Now, because of that, because of memory structures, when you've got somebody in an emotional state, it also means they're going to remember your content. Not only you and the content, but the two will be linked together. Yeah. They'll go, I remember this content and I remember who gave it to me. Then there's entertainment. My belief is that the days of chalk and talk are gone. People now not only expect to be educated, they expect to be entertained. We have YouTube to thank for that. You know, thanks to YouTube, we can now see the best speakers in the world from our lounge. It raised the bar massively. We now have to entertain. I've just launched a podcast, you know, and I've never done one before. So I did a training. I invested in doing a training on how do you do podcasts, successful podcasts. And they said there's two things that are important in a podcast. And Andy was just talking about podcasts, I think, just before I came on. And they went, firstly, entertainment. Secondly, education. Entertainment is more important than education these days. Yeah. And there's something else. Fun. Not only for your audience, but also for you. I mean, you know, Andy was saying, I don't know if Andy quite realizes how old I am. I've been doing what I'm doing now for 32 years. How do you sustain that? How do you sustain it? Particularly, how do you sustain it in the tough times? It's easy to sustain it when everything's going well and everything's going easy, but how do you sustain it in the tough times? You've got to have fun with it. And, you know, the little thing that I just did for you is what I call my showcase. And I don't have it scripted. I don't have it written down. I've got a structure around it. I deliver it. It comes out different every single time. And that's how I keep it alive and fresh and fun. Yeah? So how do we go about doing that? How do we elicit states in an audience? Stories. So kids love stories, don't they? When mum and dad goes, I'll go to bed, I'll tell you a story. They're like, yeah. Well, kids are just little wandering unconscious minds. They don't have a conscious mind. Conscious mind, logic, rationality, sense. Unconscious mind, fun. And no matter how old somebody is in your audience, their unconscious mind's still a 5-year-old. You know, when they brought out the Harry Potter books, more adults bought those books than kids. More adults went to see the movies than kids. Why? Because they loved the story. And they loved the magic. How many of you here can remember a time when you were a lot younger where you lived in a magical world and a magical universe? Yeah. Then you went through this massively overrated process called growing up. And the magic decreased. How many people have experienced that? Let me ask you another question. How many of you here would like to get the magic back? 2 hands. Yeah. This is how you bring the magic back to people's lives, by telling them stories. And, you know, every single person here put their hand up to that. And I think that's a real universal. I know you guys are into personal development and all that kind of stuff, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. But when I have any audience and I ask that question, everybody puts their hand up. The thing that's missing in the world today is 2 things: magic and fun. When you get up on the stage and you enable people to experience magic and fun, then you'll stand out. Because it's not just about information. It's about experience. And I know you've seen the video, because Andy was unpacking it. He sent it to me the other night, and I watched it after I'd finished my treat in the evening with the lady with the phobia, right? And, he's talking about how he went about changing her internal representations, how he went about changing her experience. Now, that was Andy working one-on-one. What I want to talk to you about tonight is about how we can do that one-on-many. Now, I do a NLP trainers training, and Andy's done NLP trainers training with me. It's 18 days. So I thought that'd be a good idea. But I'm guessing that you want to have some dinner tonight. So I can't take you through the 18 days, but I'm going to give you a kind of like a little bit of a taster, things that you can start using right away. Things that, I don't know what Andy's got planned for you tomorrow, things that you can start using tomorrow. So there are these things called universal experiences. Universal experiences are really great for eliciting states. How many people here remember their first driving lesson? I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm 17 years old. I actually truly thought I could drive. I'd seen my mum drive, I'd seen my dad drive, I'd seen millions of people drive. I thought, why do I need lessons? Until first lesson, I'm there in the car for the first time in the driving seat. And I'm overwhelmed with the lights, dials, levers, all that kind of stuff. I'm learning to drive a manual car. I'm looking down at the floor. There are 3 pedals. I've only got 2 feet. What am I going to press the middle pedal with? And as a guy, I'm getting all kinds of things about inadequacy, because I'm going like, there's no way I can reach that. Then you go like, okay, do you press the clutch before you change gear or after you change gear? And my driving instructor was trained in very effective feedback models, which was like, it's in there somewhere. Yeah. So after 20 minutes, I finally managed to pull away from the curb using the kangaroo technique. And then I thought, actually, I think I'm starting to get this. Little did I know that he was using the dual controls to do the clutch and the brakes and all that kind of stuff. And then he keeps going to me, look in the mirror. I'm thinking, why do I want to know where I've been? I'm just interested in where I'm going. And I think your average driving lesson is like 45 minutes, something like that. I was exhausted. Slumped down on the sofa at home. My mum said, how was your driving lesson? And I went, oh, Mum, will this ever be something that's easy? Will this ever be something that's automatic? But what happens as you have more and more lessons? It gets easier and easier, doesn't it? How many people here been in their car and they've gone on a journey that you do on a regular basis, and when you get to your destination, you can't remember how you got there? Yeah. And you have to go like, did I hit anything on the way? Or how many people have experienced the who stole my motorway exit? Where in the morning you go, I'm sure junction 15 was between 14 and 16. But tonight it seems to have disappeared. Who was driving the car? Your unconscious mind was driving the car. Now, you see, this is how universal experiences elicit states. Because I'm talking about a universal experience, first driving lesson. How many people here remember their first driving lesson? All of you put your hand up. And also, I saw the state change in the room. Because it's a universal experience, which means I've elicited an emotional state in you. Which is, and if you think about it now, it's the state of going from complete overwhelm and incompetence to the state that you're now in when you drive your car of like it's completely automatic, you don't even have to think about it. All in one universal experience. And when you talk to people about those universal experiences, they can't not do that. Yeah? Now here's the other thing that universal experiences do for us. They elicit states. Brilliant. How many people here have heard of rapport? Just out of interest. Great. Rapport. Yeah. Now, rapport is all about sameness. And your experience of your first driving lesson was the same as mine. Which just with that one story elicit the states, but also gets you rapport because I had the same experience as you. Now, here's something else that they do for you. I'm sure all of us have been in a training or a presentation where the presenter or the trainer came across with an air of, I know significantly more than you, and I always will. Have we? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Disempowering for the audience. Now, when you use a universal experience, what you do is something quite different. Because with a universal experience, you come down into the audience. And the audience go, she or he is just the same as me. Therefore, anything I see them doing, I can do. It's just a matter of focus, attention, and effort. Now you've empowered your audience, because they leave going, I want to be able to do that, and I know I can. All by telling your own universal experience. So, you know, I remember I used to get excited about Christmas around about the end of June. There's a reason for that. My birthday is in the first week of January. So you've got Christmas, presents, parties, yay. New Year, parties, yay. Birthday, parties, presents, yay. Then nothing for 50 weeks. So you've got to learn to get excited early. But then my excitement changed to curiosity the week before Christmas. Because I don't know about you, there was no way I was waiting until Christmas morning. You got this already, haven't you? No way I was waiting until Christmas morning to find out what my presents were. I had to find out before. Now, the week before Christmas, my mum and dad went out for Christmas parties, whatever. And one or both of my grandmas would come and babysit for me and my sister. Now, neither of my grandmas are with us physically these days. And it's still a closely held secret. Both of my grandmas were addicts. They were addicted to Coronation Street. Yay. Fellow addicts in the audience need to go into rehab. So, and this is in the days before video recorders, right? It's in the days before Sky Plus. It's in the days before the omnibus edition of Coronation Street. If you missed an episode of Coronation Street, it was gone forever. And that is just beyond the mindset of my grandmas. So I knew I had a window of opportunity. 7:30. Theme music comes on. That cat walks across the wall. That cat's got to be like 70 years old now, in human years, let alone cat years. And I go to my grandma and go like, Grandma, I need to go to the loo. Go, okay, go. So I'd sneak upstairs. Now, the secret hiding place for Christmas presents was on the top of my mum and dad's wardrobe. Now, let me do a survey here. How many people here, when you were a kid, was the secret hiding place in or around a wardrobe? They thought you didn't know. So I snuck upstairs into my mum and dad's bedroom, and I was little, right? So I've got to get a chair. So I'm like, stood on this chair like this, right? And, oh, fuck that. I've got to get, you know, the presents right up from the top of the wardrobe. Now, my mum and dad were way more organised than me. Because it's the week before Christmas. Not only have they bought all the presents, they've wrapped them up. Did that stop you? No. Now, what was the first thing you did? Shake it. Rattles. Toys. Rattles a lot. Broken toys. That was one year. Soft and squidgy. Oh, fuck. I mean, I love getting clothes for Christmas now, but when I was a kid, I'm going like, oh no. if my Auntie Jones knitted me a jumper again, I really hope this year the V's in the middle and the sleeves are the same length. Now, I won't tell anybody. How many of you developed that skill of being able to pull back the sellotape, have a look inside, and then put it back and nobody had known you'd been in? Now, in actual fact, I know it's more people than that, but you're still feeling guilty about it. We've got a seminar for that. So there we go again, universal experience. When I talk about my experience of the week before Christmas, you can't not go there yourself. And when you bring up a memory, you bring up an emotional state. You can't not. So, you know, there's two universal experiences. Here's where to go looking for universal experiences early in life. Yeah. The firsts. First exam you passed. The first job you got. The first promotion. First kiss. First time you asked somebody to dance or somebody asked you to dance. First time you drove a car after you'd passed your test and you drove the car on your own. The first time you went on holiday without your parents. And, you know, you tell those stories, it gets you rapport, it puts you into the audience, and it elicits an emotional state. And guess what? Nobody has got your story. So if you're at a multi-speaker event, I mean, this was always one of my worst nightmares. Was you go to a multi-speaker event, you're on the afternoon, you've pulled all your stories out of, what was that book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, which I thought was an interesting book, because what I did was I read Chicken Soup for the Soul. If I was feeling particularly good one day, then I'd read that book to make myself feel bad. Because it was a book of sad stories, basically. But, you know, and lots of people use those stories in their presentations, in their speeches. And imagine you're on at the end of the day and everybody's used your stories. I actually experienced that. I was speaking for the $1 Million Roundtable. So this is all insurance salespeople. They've all sold at least $1 million of life insurance. So the high achievers, about 400 people there. I was on just before lunch. There was a guy on before me, and he was doing a speech or presentation about something to do with technology or whatever. Pretty good. But he told a joke. And he told it brilliantly. The audience just fell about laughing. And like a professional stand-up comedian, he rode the laugh. Yeah, brilliantly. Now, in the afternoon, there's the big speaker, Roger Black, the guy who got the gold medal for the relay, 400 meters relay, right? And he comes on. I mean, these big speakers, I'm there all day, right? Because I want to see what other people do, and I'll explain a number of reasons for that before we finish this evening. I want to see what other people are doing, because if somebody's doing something really well, I can borrow it. If somebody's doing something really badly, I can avoid it, right? Now, but Roger Black, no, chauffeur-driven, comes in literally 5 minutes before he's on. He's going to get helicoptered out afterwards. And so he's doing his presentation, and he told the same joke. But he didn't know. And nobody laughed. And he couldn't work out why, because obviously he'd done this hundreds of times before, and it had always worked. And you could see he was completely phased, and he never got it back. Now, at the end of his presentation, he put on the video of winning the gold medal for the 400 meters relay. And he got a standing ovation, but not for his speech. The video got him the standing ovation. Now, I don't know about you. I've never won a gold medal. I've never skied down Everest on one leg. I've got no big achievement like that. But the thing is, when you do this, you don't need that. Because you become one of the audience. So what I want you to do tonight is think about what's your universal experiences. You know, I told the one about me taking apart radios, which is true. I still do today, right? And I was doing that at one of my trainings, and somebody came up to me and he said, he said, I think you tell the radio story a lot better than ... this big name in the NLP world. I won't say who it was. And I said, oh, thank you very much. And then he said, why do you think that is? And I said, because I was there. I know for a fact this guy's never taken a radio apart in his life. I don't need to write that down. I don't need to script it. I just need to go back into the past, bring up the memory of taking a radio apart and talk about it. That's how you can build a presentation where you move beyond scripts, move beyond notes. And it's yours. You own it. Right? Personal stories. And then archetypal stories. Is Merlin and Arthur an archetypal story? Yeah. And all cultures have archetypal stories. Yeah. Movies are made around archetypal stories. They entertain. They engross people. And then let's anchor them. So, anchoring is a technique in NLP, but it's based on Pavlov. Can I go one slide back? Yeah. Myths, legends, and fairy stories. That's the archetypal stories.
What's the difference between that and archetype?
What's the difference between what? There isn't a difference. There isn't a difference. They're the same. That's where Carl Jung came up with the idea of archetypes from. He looked at all the myths, legends, and fairy tales around the world and realized that they all had the same archetypal characters. Yeah, there were 12 of them. And that's where he came up with the idea of the archetypes. Because they appear in every single myth, legend, and fairy tale in every single culture, in every single country of the world. So again, when you fire off archetypes, it's almost like having push buttons on your audience. And you go, okay, how many people know a villain? How many people know a hero? This is the reason, I mean, I don't know if you, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember when Princess Diana died. I was quite a Princess Diana fan, to be honest with you. And I was like really upset about it. But a lot of people couldn't understand why they were so upset, because they weren't particularly a fan of hers before she died. But as soon as they heard the news, they burst into tears, and they couldn't work out why. Why? Because the archetype of the princess died inside of them. That's why they were upset. And when you start working with archetypal stories, then, you know, Merlin and Arthur. We've all hesitated. What do we want instead? We want to totally go for it. But we don't know how. Now you do. Yeah. So anchoring is an NLP technique. It's based on Pavlov. And how many people here have heard of Pavlov and his dogs? Right. So you got a dog there, you give the dog a steak, you ring, everybody says it's a bell, it was actually a tuning fork, right? Ding. And in the dog's neurology, it links the sound of the tuning fork to salivating for the steak. And after Pavlov had done it a number of times, he then didn't give the dog a steak, just rang the tuning fork, and the dog started to salivate. Then Pavlov came to this major aha moment and goes, humans are just like dogs. And we create associations in our neurology. So, how many people have ever had that experience where you hear a particular piece of music and immediately a particular person comes to mind? Yeah, and maybe I haven't thought of them for decades, and you hear this music and boom, it's there. Or you smell a particular aftershave or a particular perfume and boom, it's there. Or you sat in your car, parked at the side of the road, and you see a flashing blue light in a mirror and you put your foot on the brake, even though you're not moving. That is an anchor, and we are anchoring machines. Okay? I mean, here was a really great example of that. Levi's, the jean company, wanted to attract a different demographic for jean sales, because they were known at that point in time as a very young person's brand, and they wanted to attract older people. So very cleverly, what did they do? They went and looked at, for this demographic they wanted to attract, what was number one in the charts in the summer of love. You know the summer of love where you got, like, you know, you've got your first boyfriend, first girlfriend. How many people remember that one? Summer of love. Yeah. Oh, I don't believe you. You're all too shy. I can't believe. And so what they did was they found it was Marvin Gaye's, heard it through the grapevine. So they created an advert. They filmed it in black and white, because it was black and white TV for these people, the age group they wanted to attract. And the advert was a guy, summer, black and white, jumping into a swimming pool and swimming a length. Nothing to do with jeans at all. And at the end of it, it had Levi's. That advert was so successful that all the people that saw it in that particular demographic went out and bought the record. And it became number one again. So now every time that record plays on the radio, people are thinking about Levi's. What a fantastic use of anchoring, right? Now, I know you've seen Andy anchoring, because you saw it in his demo for the phobia, right? Where he keeps changing the lady's state and then touches her on the shoulder, right? Changes her state again, touches her on the shoulder. That's anchoring, okay? Now that's what we call a kinesthetic anchor. But there are other ways of anchoring other than kinesthetic. We can create visual anchors. Now I've got it. Because when you see me here, it's different than seeing me over there. And you'll notice that each of those places that I anchored, I had a different physiology. Yeah. So I looked different. I looked different over there than over here. Right. That anchors it in your neurology. There's auditory. You'll notice as well that each of those places I went to, I had a different voice tonality. Then there's the ones that Andy was using, which is kinesthetic, where you actually touch the person. But I can't come running around touching all of you. And probably I'd get arrested.
Give it a go.
Andy, you know me too well to give a dare like that to me. And then there's what we call a phrase that pays. So you'll notice that each of these particular places that anchored particular states had a different phrase that pays. Yeah. Fucking frustrated. That was the phrase that pays. See, you've gone into it already. Yeah.
Noise.
Now I've got it. That was the phrase that pays. Yeah. Right on the verge. And I did take you back to a universal experience, by the way. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So what it means is that we can use our stage to do all of these things, whereas the majority of people just hang on to the flip chart for dear life, or they hang on to their slides for dear life. Now, here's an interesting thing. I've got slides tonight, but I did a presentation skills training for a division of Microsoft. It was quite a long time ago. To give you an idea, it was Microsoft's youngest department. It was Microsoft mobile devices. It's probably now their biggest department, right? And the director was the youngest director of Microsoft. He was only 30. And I don't know if you know this, but when you become a director of Microsoft, you immediately become an overnight millionaire because of the share options that you've got. And he did a number of things when he was introducing me. He said, people have asked me, how come I'm the youngest director of Microsoft? And he said, because I learnt to speak and I learnt to present. He said, I realized that the quickest way of emptying a room was for somebody to come into the office and ask for somebody to do a presentation. People would dive under their desks, they would go to the loo, they would go to the kitchen to make a coffee, whatever. And he said, even though it terrified me, I always volunteered. He said, because I was always the person that stood up and spoke, I was the person that when there was a promotion, that people thought about. That's how he became the youngest director of Microsoft. But that wasn't the most interesting thing that he said. He said, there is a thing called death by PowerPoint. And he said, if ever I hear of any of you using PowerPoint in any of your presentations, you will immediately be fired. This is Microsoft, right? If you use PowerPoint in this guy's division, you'll immediately be fired. And I thought, that's an interesting thing, you know. And then he explained why. He said, anybody can put your slides together for you. It doesn't prove that you know anything. But as soon as you walk up to a blank piece of paper and pick up a pen, even if you've prepared those charts in your mind over and over again, people immediately go, now there is somebody that knows their stuff. Yeah, think about that. So when I looked at anchoring from the stage, I discovered that I wasn't the first. So I want to show you a couple of, before I bring Andy up, because I think I've probably run over my time, I want to show you a couple of videos where we've got people, politicians, using anchoring. Okay. Now, the first one is Tony Blair, and it relates to Princess Diana, right? Tony Blair is a master practitioner of NLP. There are rumours that I trained him. I didn't, but then if I had, I would have to say that. Yes, that is. Okay. That is a bind. No, I didn't train him. He's not good enough. So here's the backstory to this. So when Princess Diana died in Paris, the next day there was massive bad feeling towards the royal family. There was bad feeling towards Prince Charles because of, his affair with Camilla and all that kind of stuff. And there was bad feeling towards the Queen because she refused to fly the Union Jack at half-mast. Right? So Tony Blair came to the rescue for then Prince Charles and exquisitely did an anchoring technique. So I'm going to unpack this for you before you see it, because I saw this on TV and I went like, there's something weird going on there, but I don't know what it is. So the next time the news is on, I recorded it and I watched it over and over again, and then I worked out what he's doing. Now, at this point in time, from a historical point of view, Tony Blair was at the height of his popularity in the country. Yeah. So he's got positive emotions anchored to him. What he does in this speech is he takes on mannerisms and speech patterns of Prince Charles. Particularly, and I'll put them out for you, particularly when Prince Charles comes up to speak, as he walks up onto the stage, he's always wearing a suit, always wearing a shirt with cufflinks. And what he does is he always tugs on his cuff on the shirt. So he's got 1 inch of shirt showing under his suit. Then before he speaks, he always does this. And then he starts to speak. And he speaks in short bursts with pauses like this as he's speaking. Tony Blair doesn't normally speak like that, but he does in this speech. And what does he do? He transfers the positive emotions that are attached to him, anchored to him, to Prince Charles. It was so effective that immediately the nation turned towards Prince Charles. So effective that it didn't affect the way that they thought about the Queen. Let me show you this video.
I believe, to Sedgefield, the Prime Minister's constituency, where he is about to make a statement. We heard earlier from the Prime Minister coming now with his wife, Shireen, and his family. And we heard earlier, he's with his constituency agent as well, and we heard earlier that he said he was utterly devastated at news of the death of the Princess of Wales, and we know he is going to say more now.
Can we please have your reaction to the news?
I feel like everyone else in this country today, utterly devastated. Our thoughts and prayers are with Princess Diana's family, in particular her 2 sons, the 2 boys. Our hearts go out to them. We are today a nation in Britain in a state of shock, in mourning, in grief that is so deeply painful for us. She was a wonderful and a warm human being. Though her own life was often sadly touched by tragedy, She touched the lives of so many others in Britain, throughout the world, with joy and with comfort. How many times shall we remember her, in how many different ways? With the sick, the dying, with children, with the needy. When with just a look or a gesture that spoke so much more than words, she would reveal to all of us the depth of her compassion and her humanity. You know how difficult things were for her from time to time. I'm sure we can only guess at, but the people everywhere, not just here in Britain, everywhere, they kept faith with Princess Diana. They liked her, they loved her, they regarded her as one of the people. She was the people's princess. And that's how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and in our memories forever.
Did you see what he did then? The other thing he did at the end was he did this, which was a classic Princess Diana eye pan, right? He did that right at the end. Yeah. That is like so well structured and a demonstration of the power of state elicitation and anchoring. Now I'm going to show you one more, then me and Andy are going to talk about something very special that we've put. Of course, yes.
Is it, let's say, educated? Is it rehearsed?
Yep.
Yeah.
In fact, I know the backstory because the night that Princess Diana died, I had a friend of mine staying at a hotel in opposite Windsor Castle. And he was in the bar. And there was a delivery to the hotel for Tony Blair. A package. And the package was taken to the Windsor Castle. And the package was from Tony Rollins. So yes, that's totally 100% deliberate. Yep.
So natural.
Hey, listen, you know, here's the thing with this, and I'm going to show you one more video just for a minute of Barack Obama using anchoring. Okay? Has anybody got a pen I could borrow? Could I just borrow your pen for a second? So you'll notice that Obama uses a particular gesture when he's speaking. And when you hear the audience getting excited, he uses this gesture here. Yeah. I've watched him on news interviews, when he's being interviewed on TV, not doing a presentation. He never uses that gesture. So it's not a idiosyncratic gesture, if you like. It's something that's deliberate. Yeah. And he's wanting people to vote. When do you adopt that gesture? When you hold a pen. Now the interesting thing is, there's another video where he's actually in a state. That's a state in the US, not state as an emotional state. A state in the US where they have electronic voting, and he doesn't use that gesture. What he uses is that gesture. Which is exactly. Yeah. So yes, totally deliberate. Now let's have a look at this. Sorry, I'm taking your pen. Now I've just got to wind this video forward.
The California! Thank you, California. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I'm fired up now. Thank you. Thank you, California. What a letting people buy into the same kind of health care plan that members of Congress give themselves. It'll bring down costs by investing in information technology and preventive care so we don't have children going to the emergency room for treatable illnesses like asthma. We're going to stop the drug companies from price gouging when patients need their medicine. We'll have a plan that will help businesses and families shoulder the burden of catastrophic care so that an illness doesn't lead to a bankruptcy. And this plan will save the average family $1,000 a year on their premiums. Because it's not just folks who don't have health insurance who are suffering. A lot of folks who have health insurance are having a tough time right here and right now in California. We can do this.
Yeah, you see it? What was his phrase at Pay? Yes, we can. So there's a point where he would walk out on the stage and the audience, tens of thousands of people, would be going, yes, we can. Yes, we can. That's anchoring. Now, here's my thing about this. Why are the likes of Tony Blair, why are the likes of Barack Obama using these techniques? For one reason, and one reason only. They work. So, with that in mind, whether we agree with their politics or not, as speakers, should we be doing the same thing? And I would say yes. Now, sooner or later, you know, Christmas comes around. And it's time to unwrap the present. I don't know about you, but every now and again, I'd unwrap the present, and what was inside wasn't what I was expecting. Every now and again, I'd unwrap the present, and what was inside was better than I was expecting. I don't know if you've ever had an experience like that, where you unwrap the present, and what you found inside was better than you were expecting. So Merlin looked at Arthur, holding Excalibur in his hands, after he claimed his rightful place of King of England. And Merlin said to him, you know, the thing you need to realize is this. The magic's not in Excalibur. The magic is inside of you. If somebody took Excalibur away from you tomorrow, you would still be the King of England. The magic is inside of you. How come David can fix radios when he's only 5 years old? And my dad said, it's because he's curious. Then he turned to me and he said, if there's one thing that I wish for you, it's this. Just stay curious. Always wonder what's happening inside. Because curiosity keeps you young. Young. It's my accent, it's okay. Because I've moved back to Nottingham. A lot of people say to... Sorry? Hey, listen. I'm from Mansfield. Yeah. I now live in Ravenshead.
I used to live in Arnold. So.
Arnold. Oh, boy. No wonder we have rapport. Yeah, because a lot of people say, David, how many languages do you speak? And I can't even say I speak English. I speak Mansfield. Yeah. You're up, my duck. Yeah. So, Andy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we give a big round of applause, please, for David Shephard. Thank you much. Great to be here, staying here. What do you think? I guess you still got it, whatever it is. Well done. So, we've been chatting about this for a few months, and I've actually wanted for years to reteach NLP again, because it's my first love, and I think it was identified earlier. You said, like, this is what you are good at, you should do it. And it is true. Although I stopped teaching it. And the reason I stopped teaching it is because I used to, and I created a business that failed, because you know my story.
Yep.
So I had pain around it, huh? So now I created a whole business right there, and it's still there, it's still undercurrent of it all. But my first love, you did that, first kiss, first love.
Yeah.
My first love in training was really the NLP. And so I've asked David if we could put an event together for this exclusive group. So we're only doing this for PSA members.
Yeah.
It's not available outside for non-members. We want to put together an event that was unique and different, customized for you, something that would give you everything you need as a speaker, as a coach, whether you do it therapeutically, whether you do it influentially. What can we do to make you a master or an expert of influence? So we put together an event that we're going to kind of deliver, although David will deliver most of it, but I'll deliver some key moments of that as well, for you to have an experience of how you can do some of the magic that David did here tonight. How can you use it in your one-to-one interactions, but how can you also use it in your one-to-many interactions? So can you talk into some of the things we'll be doing?
Yeah, so I looked at influence, big picture. And, the kind of like the name that's always mentioned in influence is Robert Cialdini and his book, Influence. If you haven't read that book, get it. I was told...
My entire 7-figure seminar secrets is geared around that.
Oh, is that right?
Because, because I have, here, the second book he wrote, which is...
Yeah, Persuasion.
Persuasion. So in my model, I have persuasion, persuasion, post-suasion.
All right, cool.
Right? Because that completes the trinity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As in, how do you continue to influence people after you made the offer?
Yeah.
When they know what you're selling.
So the thing with Cialdini is, it's a very academic book, but at the end of it, you don't know how to apply it. So what we then do is to bring in NLP with Cialdini's rules to actually apply them from the stage, one-to-one, from your marketing, from your advertising, your selling, all of that kind of stuff. And at the end of the event, you will have a complete plan, bless you, of how...
A very unique sneeze, well done.
If we hear it again, we know where it's coming from.
Yeah. Anchored.
It's anchored.
Yeah.
And, I do certification trainings in NLP. Andy's done all of them. But this training's not certification. And when I teach NLP in a certification training, I have to teach it in a particular way.
It's very rigid.
In this one, it's not. So what we're going to be learning is street NLP. Gloves off NLP.
It's basically the NLP I use. It's like, let's use it my way.
I'm going to be having you go out into the hotel and use the techniques with the unsuspecting public, right?
Stuff like that.
A lot of fun. Then I'll also, you've seen Andy do some hypnosis. I thought about, hypnotherapy, Milton Erickson. Is therapy influence? He would take people who'd been doing a particular behavior for like 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and in a matter of hours would have them change their behavior. Is that influence? Yeah. But you don't get to learn Ericksonian hypnosis except in the context of therapy. So we're going to teach you how to do conversational Ericksonian hypnosis, which again, you can do one-to-one, one of many.
So it's basically neuro-linguistic programming. So the linguistic bit is the language
Linguistic
part,
bit. Yeah,
which
exactly.
I love that part.
Yeah.
Because that's your Milton model and your meta model.
Yeah. Then also, you've probably all heard of Derren Brown, cold reading. I'm going to teach you some cold reading stuff that will enable you to look at somebody and know immediately what's going on in their life so that you can influence them around that. Yeah.
That's some sensory acuity stuff. And that was a piece of that earlier when we could sense some things about Chovy in that early interaction by what we calibrated, right? And what we noticed and paid attention to. So when and this is why I'm socially inept, is because, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's because, like, you can't have conversations with people anymore and just enjoy casual conversations because you're always reading behind the words.
Right.
And then I can't not do an intervention with people when I hear that there's something in the way. I will then go at it. And I only met this person a minute ago and they're coming for a beer. This is not what they signed up to, sort of thing. So it makes it kind of challenging. So you have to learn then to kind of switch it off, which I haven't learned. But you'll have a whole set of amazing tools to facilitate change.
And also, we've added in values levels.
Yes.
Claire Grazer's values levels,
Yes.
which is an absolutely amazing model. Values levels, yeah, by a guy called Claire Graves. It will explain exactly why different people do what they do in certain situations and circumstances. And you'll know what values level somebody's operating from and how to specifically influence them. Also, there's one particular values level, if you're in business, that you want to attract. And you'll know exactly how to attract just those people.
So
Is that like DILTs? Is it similar to the DILTs model?
well, that's logical levels, isn't it?
That's
logical
it's not.
levels.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not the same as
logical
DILTs.
levels.
It's different than DILTs. I mean, DILTs talks about values.
Yeah.
But Claire Graves had a completely different take on values than the NLP idea of values. Yeah.
So we'll be doing things from a neuro perspective. That's all the sort of mindset stuff, the shift in the internal representation stuff. There's elements of that. And also the language models as well. So you'll get the best bits of NLP without having to go and do a 17 million hour course.
And all backed up by neuroscience.
Yeah.
There's an explanation as to why and how it works.
Yeah. So, you can see it, talk to the guys. We've got a special pricing for this event. It's all on the wall over there. You can go check it out. But that price is for PSA members only, and it's open till 5 o'clock tomorrow. So at 5 o'clock tomorrow, the price goes up to $3,500. It's under $3,000 at the moment, if that's something you want to seriously do. And we're going to limit, I think 25 is probably about the numbers ideally that we want. We don't want more than that. We have got a few people already purchased prior to this event. So,
right.
But it's not me or David you have to speak to around that. You've got Carly and Cordell over there. You know where they are. Go and have a chat to them at some point and work out how you want to go and do it. But those places will go pretty quick. I'm expecting they'll go pretty fast.
Yeah.
Questions at the back of the room from Ruth? Yes, from people online perhaps.
Could you please give the price because the people online can't see the posters?
No, sorry. Keep it.
And also, will there be a link for them?
Yeah. So we'll put a link in for them to do it. And what is the Cordell? What is it? 2,995 plus VAT. Is that correct? 2,995 plus VAT. There you are. That's the pricing. 2,995 plus VAT. Okay.
And when?
When is on there? So what's the date?
19th and 22nd of September.
19th to 22nd of September. That's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yep.
So in this case, the weekend's right in the middle there.
So, but can I ask you about the, let's say, the difference between the theory and the practical stuff?
What theory and practical? How much practical theory stuff is in there?
Massive amount of practical.
So NLP can only be learnt really by doing it.
Which is why we're doing it as a physical event and a live event. And like I say, literally you'll be going out and doing exercise. You do some exercise with the people in the room, but I'm going to send you out doing stuff with the unsuspecting public in the hotel.
Will they get some things they can have as party tricks to wow their friends and family with? That's the most important thing.
I'm sure we can throw some things in.
Yeah. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up. David Shephard, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.